The AI revolution. It feels like it's all about algorithms and super fast chips, right? But what if I told you that's only half the story? Behind the scenes, there's something else. A massive, hidden global workforce. They're the real engine behind this whole thing. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and find out who they are. You know, every single day, we're all using AI. It feels like magic, doesn't it? It answers our questions, it helps us navigate, it even picks out our next favorite song. It's just there. It's seamless, it's instant. But what's really powering all that? What's the secret sauce? Well, it's not just about clever code. The real answer is something much bigger. It's like a huge, invisible, global assembly line. A system that connects the biggest tech companies on the planet with literally millions of workers. These are the people whose hands are actually shaping the AI we use every day, even though chances are you've never heard of them. So how did this whole assembly line even get started? Well, it all comes down to a really simple business truth. In the crazy race for AI dominance, speed is everything. And for the big tech giants, the fastest way to get ahead is to outsource. Think about it from a company's perspective. Trying to build all this cutting-edge AI from scratch, it's slow and it's incredibly expensive. So what do? They outsource. They tap into this global talent pool to find people with very specific skills. They use ready-made AI services. They're basically plugging AI into every single part of their business. It has become a complete gold rush for data, for talent, and for that tiny edge that puts them ahead of everyone else. And let's be clear, we are talking about huge amounts of money. To get a sense of the scale here, just look at this one example. The market for AI training data, just in Taiwan. It's projected to hit over $100 million by 2032. And that's just one country for one tiny piece of this whole puzzle. This is, without a doubt, a global gold rush for what they're calling the new oil. Perfectly labeled data. Okay, so if data is the new oil, you've got to ask, where are the refineries? Where does all this stuff get processed? Well, they're probably not what you're picturing. We need to go past the shiny corporate websites and step inside what people are now calling data factories. And this is where we hit the great irony of this whole AI revolution. The promise, right? The promise was that AI would free us from all the boring, repetitive, robotic tasks. But the reality is pretty much the opposite. To make AI smart enough to do that, it first requires this new kind of digital assembly line. One that's staffed by real people, doing some of the most mind-numbingly repetitive work you can imagine. The working conditions have gotten so bad, in fact, that a really powerful and, honestly, pretty disturbing term has started to pop up, used by critics and even the workers themselves: digital sweatshops. It paints a picture of a world where people spend endless hours labeling data, for pennies, really, all just to make our algorithms a little bit smarter. And the scale of this, it's just staggering. It's hard to even wrap your head around. Let's take just one company, a big player called Scale AI. They provide data for the giants. Think OpenAI, think Meta. Well, they rely on a global workforce of more than 240,000 people. 240,000. And these aren't employees getting a salary and benefits, no. They're basically a scattered army of gig workers labeling data from every corner of the globe. So what's the real human cost here? Well, the reports describe a system where workers, a lot of them in the global south, are doing these incredibly mind-numbing tasks for pay that is just shockingly low. I mean, one worker from the Philippines said they earned just 30 cents for 4 hours of work. 30 cents. And because they're contractors, there are no benefits, zero job security, and they're always worried that they might not even get paid for the work they've already done. It's grueling, it can be psychologically damaging, and this is the human engine that makes the whole AI engine run. Okay, so this hidden assembly line, it's doing more than just building cool new AI products. It's actually building power. Whoever controls this system, well, that's who has the upper hand. And that control is now at the very center of a new high-stakes geopolitical game. The race for AI dominance is literally redrawing the map of global power. Every big new technology promises to change the world, to create something totally new. But a lot of observers are saying, hang on a second. If you look really closely at where the data and the money are flowing, you might start to see some very, very old patterns of power. They're just wearing digital clothing this time around. And to describe what's happening, critics have come up with a really heavy term: data colonialism. The argument is pretty straightforward. Think about how old colonial empires went around the world extracting physical resources, like oil or rubber. The idea here is that today's tech empires are doing something similar, but they're extracting a new resource, our data and our digital labor. And they're turning that into unbelievable amounts of profit and power. So this new global game is on. How are different countries playing their cards? Right now, it looks like 3 very different strategies are taking shape, and they're creating the new dividing lines of AI power. Okay, let's break these down. First up, you have what's being called the U.S. data empire model. Basically, you have companies like Scale AI acting like a giant funnel, pulling in data that's been processed by that huge global workforce we talked about, and feeding it straight to the top U.S. tech firms. Now, in response to that, you have China building a tech fortress. They're facing restrictions from the U.S., so they're racing to become totally self-sufficient, building their own AI models, their own chips, their own software. A whole parallel system. And then you have countries like India stuck at what's being called the crossroads. For decades, their IT giants were a powerhouse, but now their Western clients have their own powerful AI, and they're using it to demand lower and lower prices. It's a huge threat to the very industry that helped build India's modern middle class. So when you put all this together, it all leads to a really fundamental choice. And this isn't just a choice for governments or big corporations. This new reality, it forces a choice on every single one of us. Critics of this system have broken it down into a kind of 4-step playbook. Step 1 is explore. Use your algorithms to find new areas of our lives that you can turn into data. Step 2, expand. Integrate your services so deeply into our daily routines that they become essential. You can't live without them. Step 3, exploit. Take all that data, all that user labor, and convert it into profit and control. And the final, brutal step, exterminate. Systematically outcompete and wipe out any traditional industry or way of life that doesn't fit into your data-driven model. And that last step, exterminate, that's not just about businesses going under. It's about people's livelihoods. Just listen to this warning from one entrepreneur.
This shift could wipe out nearly 40 to 50% of today's white-collar jobs. We're not just talking about a few jobs here and there. This is a potential threat to the entire economic engine of the middle class as we know it.
So it really all comes down to this. One really critical question that each of us has to ask ourselves. In this new global system, where do you stand? Are you a data provider or an AI beneficiary? Put another way, are you one of the millions feeding the machine? Or are you one of the few who's really cashing in on it? The thing is, you can't just sit on the sidelines and watch this happen. The AI revolution isn't something that's just happening to us. It's a process we are all a part of, every single day, with every click. In this revolution, there are no spectators. There are only choices. The choices we make about the kind of world we're all building together. Thanks for joining me on The Explainer.